Hello and welcome to DataSunrise demo. During this demo, we'll see how to configure and use database agents. Database agents is a module that installs into the database instance and communicates with DataSunrise instance. In this demo, we'll see how to configure DataSunrise instance and how to configure and start DataSunrise database agent inside of the database instance on Windows machine. Now, let's turn our attention to DataSunrise first. This is a DataSunrise instance running. So with DataSunrise Web UI, you can manage all the proxies, all database agents here, and log training modes and so on. But in order to activate database agents to work with DataSunrise, we need to prepare DataSunrise instance for that feature. By default, database agent and communication with database agents are disabled in DataSunrise. Now, let's see how to enable that. We can go to the system settings of DataSunrise Web UI and check these additional parameters. And we have to search for enable agent. This is enable agent option. And by default, this feature is disabled. Well, the description here says that if enabled, then DataSunrise agent settings become available. Well, it means that our agent installed in the database instance can communicate to DataSunrise when installed and configured. And this part of DataSunrise will be able to accept all operations and events from the database engine. Okay, we will say, okay, so this is enabled now. The second step in DataSunrise instance is to register the database instance itself. So this is my database instance. And when I enabled this agent communication with the database agent, so I can add a new agent. This is my agent already created here. And this is very important that we have the port listening to the database agent of DataSunrise inside of the database instance. I can change the settings here, provide the agent keys if you want to communicate with DataSunrise with SSL, right, and encryption. Right now, I've created a couple of rules, audit. So when anyone will try to access some sensitive data, will try to modify some users, then my database agent will let my DataSunrise instance know that some events generated. Now let's look inside of my audit rules. We will test with my DataSunrise database agent. So inside of audit user modifications, we'll see that we're going to log event in our audit storage, bind variables, and whatever user, whatever IP address connects to the database instance directly, or there could be connections, local connections from, let's say, for example, SQL Plus or Oracle database, then any user modifications, alter user, create user, drop user, the agent will communicate this information to DataSunrise, even if it's remote host, right? The DataSunrise instance will accept this information that some event triggered inside of the database, and it will save this event on the transactional trail. If you look inside of the second audit customers, it's connected to my database and my objects, right, in my database. If any select, update, insert, delete events happen, which are DML statements, database manipulation, right, language, DML statements, then DataSunrise will save this information in the audit storage, will save the binding variables. It will also save query results. This is interesting. Even if the user will try to select some statements locally, like SQL Plus or remote connections directly to the database host and port number, right? It's okay. We'll save this information as a query results as well. Okay, now it should appear here on the transactional trails. Let's look inside of the settings of the agent freshly installed in my database instance. Now I'm connected to my database instance via the RDP protocol using remote desktop application. And I have here my folder with DataSunrise agent. When DataSunrise is installed, it has pre-configured settings, but also we can start the agent by using a command line interface, as we can see here. So when we want to control, for example, want to start the database agent, in this example, we can see that it starts with Oracle, the database. Now, the controlling application is called DS Agent CTL. The load command will load our agent to the Oracle instance. And this particular DataSunrise agent communicates with DataSunrise instance on the remote host we have here, right, by using this port number. So now I'm going to start this agent because the Oracle instance is up and running, and I switch to this command prompt application. Here is my CMD command to start this DataSunrise agent. Now we see that everything is okay. The agent is injected into the Oracle process, so everything is fine. Now, how we can test this agent? The very first step I'm going to do is to start SQL Plus application and connect to my Oracle database instance directly. And I will test how I can execute some statements like creating users and selecting some sensitive data from my Oracle database instance. Okay, now I'm going to connect to the Oracle instance as a user, local user, right? So I'm connected locally on the same machine as my Oracle database instance is running, and my DataSunrise agent is running. I'm connecting to the Oracle database instance with SQL Plus SysDB, right? So I'm connected now. So I'm connected locally, right? So connected by using RDP connection, and I'm on this machine. So I'll try to execute a statement to create user, right? Sysuser, so-called, identify it somehow, right? So the command should run successfully. The user created, right? And then I'll try to, let's say, execute some actions, and I'll try to drop user. So as a powerful user can do that. The user created first, then I made some actions maybe, and I dropped that user. One thing. Okay. Now, I would like to know about that event, right? So maybe DataSunrise should be aware that things happen. No, I minimize that. Go to DataSunrise. So we again see these two rules. They are activated. They are enabled. When we go to the transactional trails, let's refresh the page to make sure that it happened. Okay, we see that the instance we registered received a couple of events. These are two events recently added here. Let's look inside of the ID number 32. So we see the query type, audit user modifications. And this is a user I try to create. And this is create user I defined by the password was depersonalized, and so we don't have any credential password information. Okay. If we look inside of this ID number 33, we see that the same session, drop the user. Right? The same, right? the same rule activated, and this information received from the database agent created by DataSunrise, right? And now this DataSunrise instance is aware. Agent communicated that information that users created. Okay, without training logs and the proxy, that's already activated there. But let's test the remote connection. This interesting part, right? So we can go to the DBeaver application. Okay, maybe this will be a remote connection to my office, right? So we can see that I'm connected to the remote host, which I used here, right? The same Oracle database instance. And I'm trying to create a user by executing this command. Take some time. My test machines, okay. Now, the user is created. If we drop that user, the user is dropped, okay. Now, what we can see in the DataSunrise instance. Let's go back to transactional trails and refresh this page of events. So we see that the application was identified. And number 34 is the ID of the event. We see that I used the rule triggered audit user modifications. The query is to create user sysuser1 and drop user is here, I think. And the same rules triggered. So even if we remote locally or remotely, we can monitor such queries as creating, dropping users, creating schemas and database and so on. And if we need to monitor query results, there's another rule, right? So let's check this use case. So as we know, the customers is my table monitored by the rule that created. It's connected to my sensitive objects, right? Group of objects. So we can check that group of objects on the configuration of DataSunrise, right? Instance and object groups. And this group of object includes customers, table, and respectful columns. So if any user tries to select data from customers, let's say, then my audit rule created here, so audit customers, which includes my customers table and columns, will be affected, even if I update, delete, insert, and so on. I will use simple scenario to select data from customers remotely from my so-called DBeaver. Okay. So I can do that the following way. So this is my customers all created. I can use the select statement. Now, here, and this is select statement to select data from my audit page and the customers table. So, and I execute a statement. I think it will be a huge table, but anyway. So 200 rows selected. We see that some sensitive information remotely. First name, last name, and so on. Okay. And I'll copy this statement to select data from SQL+. The only thing that I'm going to do is to limit the output in the SQL+. Now I'll switch to the local server, and I'm still connected to the database instance with SQL+. So I'm connected on the same machine. And I'll try to execute the select statement on my sensitive data. So I dumped some rows, 10 rows are selected from SQL+, again from not from the remote connection, but from SQL+. And we can analyze what actually happened in my DataSunrise instance. Let's turn our attention to the audit module here and transactional trails. At least I should see two events, right? One of them is from DBeaver. Okay, we see that audit customers triggered, ID is 37. And why it's triggered? Because this object, right, as a customer's table is affected in my audit schema. right? And a lot of data is selected here, right? Okay, but can we see what actually was selected by MySQL Plus? Well, there is one, ID number 38, and this is what I've selected. I think there are 2 rows selected. Okay, so now we see that DataSunrise agent can help you to audit the data and audit even query results if necessary, if you configure the rule, the way to capture the result set from the query. And the agent is running alongside with a database server, actually inside of the database instance, and provides information to the DataSunrise instance, and provides this information for rules. And you can see this information triggered by rules in the transactional trails and see all this required information. Thank you for watching.